Christmas is going to come a little late for the Republican presidential candidates. The Iowa caucuses are January 3rd, and the White House hopefuls are spending the remaining days focused on voters in the Hawkeye state. As David Brody reports, all eyes are on two candidates, Mitt Romney and the new frontrunner, Newt Gingrich.
Saturday night in Des Moines brought a smaller field and a different face-off. In the middle, Newt Gingrich and Mitt Romney, and they didn't disappoint.
The only reason you didn't become a career politician is you lost to Teddy Kennedy in 1994.
That's probably true. If I would have been able to get in the NFL like I hoped when I was a kid, well, I'd have been a football star all my life, too.
As they garnered most of the attention at the ABC News debate, Iowa straw poll winner Michelle Bachmann worked to paint the two frontrunners as one.
If you look at Newt Romney, they were for Obamacare principles. If you look at Newt Romney, they were for cap and trade. If you look at Newt Romney, they were for the illegal immigration problem. Do we honestly believe that two men who have just stood on this stage and defended Romney Care when it was put in place in Massachusetts and the individual mandate when he proposed it in 1993, are they honestly going to get rid of it in 2012?
Yes.
This is going to be a very...
Meanwhile, Rick Perry, who's struggling in the polls, took a jab at Mitt Romney, resulting in an awkward confrontation.
I'm just saying, you were for individual mandates, my friend.
You know what? You've raised that before, Rick, and you're simply wrong.
It was true then.
No.
It's true now.
Rick, I'll tell you what. $10,000? $10,000 bet?
I'm not in the betting business.
Oh, okay.
Perry also went after Gingrich, bringing up his past marital infidelities.
If you will cheat on your spouse, then why wouldn't you cheat on your business partner?
People make mistakes, and you are held accountable to those mistakes.
I've made mistakes at times. I've had to go to God for forgiveness. I've had to seek reconciliation. But I'm also a 68-year-old grandfather, and I think people have to measure who I am now.
Gingrich also found himself on the defensive about his comment regarding the Palestinians being an invented people. Mitt Romney called it a mistake, and Ron Paul flat out disagreed.
The people in those regions should be dealing with these problems. We shouldn't be dealing with these things.
Even though more than half the voters haven't made up their mind, right now national polls show a clear Gingrich-Romney battle. Gingrich leads in the early states of Iowa, South Carolina, and Florida, while Romney is ahead in New Hampshire. For months, the Romney campaign trained their attacks on President Obama, but now they're going after Gingrich. In one ad, the message shows the contrast between Romney's secured married life and Gingrich's troubled one, although it doesn't mention Newt by name.
I've been married to the same woman for I'll get in trouble, for 42 years.
For his part, Gingrich isn't going negative, yet.
Some people say the America we know and love is a thing of the past. I don't believe that.
Eventually, though, Gingrich will be forced to respond, and how he handles the onslaught from Romney and his other critics will go a long way in determining whether he can become the GOP nominee. David Brody, CBN News.
Have you watched any of that stuff?
Well, I've watched as much as I've been able to. What do you think?
I mean, as much as you can stand.
Yeah.
Or you...
Well, I was trying to be nice.
I think this lesson was fairly interesting. You know, they had ABC put a couple of their pros up, you know, asking the questions, and it was enlightening. They tried to get Mitt and Newt, and Mitt Romney just couldn't handle it. And you know, for a guy with his wealth, saying, "Well, I'll bet you $10,000," is nothing. For the average American, a $10,000 bet.
But you know, I mean, I don't know. I guess I feel like all of it is just so childish when it gets to that finger pointing, pulling up a comment like that. I mean, how many times have you in your life, when you've wanted to make a big point about something, said, "I'll bet you $1 million that's
right.
not true"?
Yeah,
I mean,
bet you $1 million. Yeah.
You know, who can stand under that kind of...
Well, unfortunately, that's what decides elections in today's media world. But anyhow, tomorrow we'll have an in-depth interview with Newt Gingrich, how he became the comeback story of this election. Well, right now on the 700 Club, we've got some other things, and this to me is more alarming. Venezuela is building a not a nuclear, but a missile base, and it's being paid for by Iranian money, or better stated, the Iranians are building a nuclear, I keep saying it probably will be nuclear, but a missile base in Venezuela that could imperil the Panama Canal. It's a very big story. Lee Webb has the rest of our stories from the CBN Newsroom. Lee?
Well, Pat, in other news, congressional Republicans are working on a new plan to extend payroll tax cuts through next year. And they're tying their proposal to a controversial oil pipeline from Canada to Texas. President Obama has delayed that project, citing environmental concerns. But Republican leaders say they're pushing ahead because it will boost the economy.
I believe that we should extend the payroll tax holiday another year, avoid a tax increase on working people for another year. But at the same time, Chris, we'd like to create some jobs. And so we have the Keystone Pipeline in there. It's a shovel-ready project, the biggest and most important ready-to-go project in America. Wouldn't cost the government a penny, not one penny.
President Obama has said he would veto legislation that includes pipeline construction. A vote on the measure is planned for the House this week. Pat, do you think this is a good strategy for the Republicans?
Absolutely. Obama is making a decision to go with the environmentalists instead of the labor movement. The labor movement is solidly in defense of this pipeline because it'll create as many as 20,000 jobs. These people need work, and they're skilled workers waiting to go to work because nobody's hired them. And here comes a project that'll pay good wages, put them to work, and have ancillary work for others as well. It's crucial to America. We need the energy. It'll take oil from Canada down to our refineries in the Oklahoma, Texas area. And to turn it down is insanity. Why do they do it? Because the environmentalists don't like it. Now, the TransCanada has said we will reroute it away from the Ogallala Aquifer, because that was something that none of us would have wanted. To pollute that great big amount of water would have been a tragedy. So they have rerouted the thing to skirt that, and so there's no real environmental problem. But Obama wants to hold it up till after the election. He talks about creating jobs, but they lie. They lie. They're not going to try to create jobs. They're killing jobs, and this is a job killer. So I think the Republicans are playing it very smart on this one, and I think they can probably pick up enough Democratic senators in those states like Nebraska and others who would say, we're going to vote for this, and those who are in states where there is a preponderance of organized labor will vote for it because the labor people want it. So now you've got a clash of the core Democratic constituency. See how it plays out. Lee?
Pat, online sales are up this holiday season. Consumers have spent about $25 billion online. The research firm Comscore says single-day sales exceeded $1 billion 6 times, including Cyber Monday. This week is expected to be the busiest online shopping week of the season, beginning today with Green Monday. It's the last day online shoppers can have a gift delivered for Christmas without paying extra for fast shipping. San Francisco business owners warn the new year could bring layoffs. On January 1st, San Francisco becomes the first city in the nation to top $10 for minimum wage. Voters passed a proposition 8 years ago that requires the city to increase the minimum wage each year. Workers love the increase, but employers say when you combine it with the payroll tax, health care, and sick leave, cuts have to be made. This year's increase is 32 cents. It brings minimum wage in San Francisco from $9.92 to $10.24. The Palestinian bid for statehood is stalled right now in the United Nations, but the issue is far from dead. That's why Israelis are pointing out that a Palestinian state would not be a friend to democracy. Chris Mitchell shows us how a controversial Palestinian death penalty law makes their point.
On the Mount of Olives, a large Israeli flag flies over this building. But the story behind the flag is one that people seldom hear.
But who killed him? Nobody knows. It's because of the house.
Abraham's brother, Mohammed, was accused of selling the house to Jewish settlers. Just days after the new residents moved in, Mohammed's dead body was found on the road between Jericho and Jerusalem. Abraham suspects someone killed his brother because of the belief Mohammed sold the house to Jews. Abraham insists his brother was innocent.
Even one of the Jewish rabbis said, bought the house through another people, not from him. They came here, they say, we didn't buy it from him. We buy it our way. So this is what happened. This is the truth.
He's not the first, and very much to say that he might be not the last.
Pinkas Enbari says it's widely known that under the Palestinian Authority, an Arab caught selling land to Jews faces the death penalty.
It's death penalty. Death penalty. Either by court, now we have the PA, people already have been executed on these charges, or to be killed by militias, by Fatah or Islamic Jihad or whatever you have.
The decree has been in place since before Israeli statehood in 1948. Due to the danger, some real estate transactions have led to Arabs being given extra money to leave the region and resettle elsewhere. It's a subject Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu brought up to the foreign press earlier this year.
10 minutes from here in the Palestinian Authority in Ramallah, there is a law, a decree, that says that if you sell land to Jews, it's punishable by death. That's worthy of your reporting.
While this law is widely known in the Middle East, it's seldom reported in the West. That's why as the Palestinian Authority takes its case for statehood to the world and a potential vote at the UN, some want to show the nations what kind of a state they'd be voting for. Chris Mitchell, CBN News, Jerusalem.
Pat, back to you.
I want to add my voice to the same thing. Just imagine that if you sell a piece of property, you're an Arab, a Palestinian, you sell a piece of property to a Jew, you could be executed by the government, punishable by death. Now, this isn't something we made up, but I'm sure the Prime Minister of Israel isn't speaking idly. He knows what he's talking about. He said, right down the road from Ramallah. I've driven from Jerusalem into Ramallah, had lunch in Ramallah. It's just up the road. It borders Jerusalem. And yet, somebody who sells a piece of land, can you imagine this? And yet they want acceptance by the international body? How barbaric can it be? And why don't we speak out against it? Why do we always say what innocent people the Palestinians are and how nice and friendly they are? And, well, anyhow, I think, again, we need to get into history and understand where all this came about and who these folks are and where they came from and what their claims really are. And I believe one of our great writers a few years ago said he traversed the entire portion of what was then Palestine, and he couldn't find any people living there at all. And then the Jews came in and settled it, and all of a sudden some of these Arab folks came in and they said, well, this is a nice place to live, and so they moved in. But that isn't some historic claim. That's something that has happened in the last decades. Anyhow, one more burning ember in the smoldering fire of sectarian controversy. Lee?
Secretary of State Hillary Clinton is finally adding her voice to those calling for the release of Iranian pastor Youssef Nadarkhani. She says we call on every government to release all prisoners of conscience immediately and unconditionally, including Pastor Youssef Nadarkhani. Reverend Nadarkhani is facing death because of his faith. The American Center for Law and Justice started a petition to save the pastor's life, and it has more than 200,000 signatures right now, Pat.
Well, once again, we're pointing out the kind of regime that there is in Iran. You see something more than that. This is Islam, ladies and gentlemen. This is Islam. It is not a religion of peace. It is a religion of violence and repression. Look at what they're doing. Look at what's happening. Read the newspapers.
The big box chain Lowe's is pulling all advertising from a controversial new reality program. It stopped advertising on TLC's All-American Muslim. The Florida Family Association complained. The evangelical group says the show hides Islam's threat to American liberties and traditional values. Lowe's has issued a statement apologizing for offending anyone. The first family attended a church service near the White House on Sunday. The Obamas walked across Pennsylvania Avenue to St. John's Episcopal Church. They took communion at the 11 a.m. service. Last night, the president and his family attended a Christmas in Washington concert. Mr. Obama told the audience that Jesus changed the world with his teachings of love, faith, forgiveness, and service to others, and the president claims that those are the values that are shared by all faiths. You can always get the latest from CBN News by going to our website at cbnnews.com.